for any actors taking this away, or any performers, anyone who needs to do speaking, take enough breath to say what you need to say and stand behind it. Because if you're not going to stand behind it, then who is? And if you don't use your voice, stand up for yourself, how can you do it for others?
Welcome to Fluorescent. Today I will be talking to Andrei Schiller-Chan, who is a professional voice coach. He has coached clients ranging from corporate leaders, actors, TEDx speakers, instructors, and athletes.
Hey guys.
So I was wondering if you could tell us a bit about yourself.
At the moment, I've got two kind of things going on. One is that I work in a investment platform called Moneybox. So half of my life has been dedicated around finance, and I really, really enjoy that aspect of how you can put one thing together to equal another thing, and it actually very much ties into how voice and the body are related. You know, if one thing is off, it affects another part. And when I'm sitting down doing any kind of equations or anything like that, you kind of can see the relationship between voice and math. You can kind of see that in everything you do in the world. So at the moment I'm working at Moneybox, and then my other side of my life is doing voice coaching and writing articles to educate people on how to use their voice better, really.
I also understand that you do martial arts. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I used to be a state amateur boxer. So I used to fight at an amateur level in Victoria, and I did that for about, I think it was 6 years. And that really teaches you something about life and about yourself and performance. Really, really, if you want to learn how to operate under pressure and discover what your optimal performance peak is, do boxing. There is nothing like it. And then I got a few concussions out of that. A few broken noses. You can kind of tell it's a little bit wonky. And after the third concussion, and one of my lecturers asked me what 10% of 120 was, and I seriously couldn't do it. I was just sitting there going, that was when, okay, I think I've done my time. I've learned what I needed to learn in boxing. And then I always did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu a little bit while I was doing boxing, and then I transitioned into that, almost full time. So I do it for 3 or 4 times a week now after work, and on the weekends. And it is just an amazing sport. You really learn how to use your body and think things through. If you're a performer, and I've said this a lot, if you're a performer of any kind, doing a martial art, whether it's boxing or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or Muay Thai, but things that really kind of put you under pressure, so it teaches you how to learn how to get your body ready before a fight, and then also how to navigate your body during the fight, and then what happens after, is a very, very important aspect of performance. It does teach you discipline. It does teach you it teaches you to accept your limits. That is one of the most important things that I've come to learn from doing martial arts. And you reach those limits and you learn to accept yourself. The worst thing about this day and age is that people say there are no limits and that you have to, nothing is impossible. Well, trees don't grow to the sky. Yeah. Everyone has limits. And when you reach those limits, that's perfectly acceptable and fine, because everyone has them. This thing about accepting your limits is not to be underestimated, because a lot of people, any performers, when they have a bad day, sometimes they just quit, sometimes they just give up. But the rhythm of learning is 2 steps forward and 1 step back. And getting my nose broken or getting concussed or just getting tapped out, you learn that stuff happens, but don't let it stop you. That you're going to have some bad days, but it'll always get better in the end. So 2 steps forward, 1 step back is, I think, maybe what your listeners can take away from this long spiel about martial arts. There's so many people that, inspire me. I wouldn't know where to start with that. But what gets me going, what keeps my fire alight, especially when I'm writing the articles, because I try and get one out every week, and it's really just to help educate people. And some of the things that I wish I knew when I was younger would really have helped me. And so I find, if I can find a way to give something back in that sense, to help any people that may feel a little bit disjointed from themselves, or a little bit either depressed or stressed or anxious, I think these articles can really help. So that's really what I'm trying to do with my work, is help to give voice back to people who feel like they've lost it a little bit.
So how did you end up going into voice coaching?
So this is such a big story. Okay, so if I start at the beginning, a hero of mine called Rubin Hurricane Carter. I'm not sure if you've heard of him, Sophie, but I mean, Bob Dylan sung a song called The Hurricane. So if anyone who doesn't know who that is, they can just go and listen to this song, and you'll learn everything you need to know about him. He wrote a book called In the Eye of the Hurricane that it talks about his experience of spending 19 years in jail for a crime he didn't commit. And then subsequently creating an organization called Innocence International, which helps to free wrongfully convicted people worldwide. And I read this book, and it really touched something that I'd been through. I mean, I was never in prison, but I was in an emotional prison of sorts from a very young age, a very, very young age. And so I was able to relate. And so I wrote him a letter to say thank you for everything that he's done for me. And he wasn't able to get back to me, but he was able to scribe to his business partner that was sitting next to his hospital bed at the time, because Rubin had prostate cancer. And so I got a letter back from him. And then this whole journey of working with him and Ken Klonsky, and helping free this amazing man called David McCallum III from 30 years of wrongful incarceration, and helping give a voice back to those who literally had it taken, was kind of the metaphor that started me on the journey of discovering, well, hang on, what is voice, and why do we feel like we don't have it, and why do we feel like it can be taken from us, and why do we feel like we don't have the right to speak? I wanted to be able to give a voice back to people like Dave. And so then I started this kind of, I suppose, individual education into understanding what voice actually is. And then that led me into studying a master's in voice studies at the Royal Central School of Speech and Drama. And David was exonerated in 2015. So it's, it really is a thing that gets me up every morning, which is that, if you give people, or if you help people find their own voice, then they can go out into the world and help people like David as well.
So I guess in some ways, like, it's how essential the voice is to things as well.
Yeah, this feeling of I don't feel like I've got the right to speak, or I don't really value what I'm saying is such a like, I'm going to say silly, because it is a silly thing to think of yourself, because everyone's got such a intrinsic life which informs the way they speak, that everyone should feel like they have the right to speak and the right to be heard, and even value their own voice as highly as they value others. And if you can use your voice to help people like David McCallum that have been wrongly persecuted against, I think everyone has a responsibility to do that. We all have a duty to kind of give back to this world, and you can do that through your voice and speaking up for people, and definitely speaking up for yourself.
So what do you think that are misconceptions about the voice?
Ooh. Well, there's two that come to mind. One is that we're all supposed to have the one voice for everything. What do you think about that, Sophie? Do you feel like you're meant to have the same voice for everything?
It's interesting. I think your voice kind of changes all the time, and knowing your voice is something really difficult.
Well, I don't know if this is a misconception. And no one has the right answer to this, but I will bring it up. And the fact is that, yes, we do have many, many, many different voices for different social contexts. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and say it's perfectly fine to have different voices for different things because it helps with social cohesion. A little bit of mindfulness here and there, won't go astray, but the fact that we all have many, many different assets for social context is a perfectly normal and natural thing. I mean, just think about when you're excited, your voice goes up. When you're sad, your voice goes down. That your voice is modulating to how you feel as well. So I don't think there's any kind of one natural voice. I think that is a misconception that goes around, that we all have this natural voice, and it's not meant to change and deviate from, I have this beautiful natural voice when I go speak in the theater, so I'll always constantly speak like this. No, it's not true, and it's not efficient, and that's where you can kind of sense falseness, maybe that, I'm not sure if that's the right term. It could be. The second thing is that I find common with a lot of students is actually how sound is made. This is a very, very interesting, really, really interesting aspect of the voice. So the vocal folds are these two tissues that reside in the larynx, which is like in between here. Okay. And you have these things called the, oh God, I can never say this. I can't remember the words. I can't just get the word, it will come back to me. So these two cartilages are responsible for bringing the vocal folds together. And when air is blown up through the vocal tract, they come to vibrate. And what happens is they send through thousands and thousands and thousands of pulses of air. And when the vocal folds come back in between these pulses of air, it literally just creates vibration. It's almost like a buzzing sound. So the sounds that we're hearing now are filtered by things going on in the vocal tract through your pharynx and your cricoid, your thyroid, your tongue and your teeth, and the way you use your mouth. So the actual sound that you're hearing aren't actually made at the vocal fold level. It's filtered through the actual structure of your vocal tract. So I think a lot of people, I think they think that sound starts right here, but it's actually the filtering.
I guess it's
that creates our voice
as well. Like, I guess everyone's like physically so different, so that impacts their voice as well. Because I guess, I don't know if this is right, but your voice is filtered in a different way depending on everything that's going on here, I guess.
Exactly, and that's what gives us our intrinsic voice, which is natural only to us. Yeah. I mean, well, we can come back to the anatomy and actually how these pulses are made, because it is a super interesting part of voice. It really, really is interesting. And if performers can understand how it's made, man, it really does help with their voice and the way they present.
So I understand that you have a website and a blog. So if people wanted to check out more about what you've been writing about voice, where could they go?
So you can go to my website, www.oratorvoice.com, or you can actually follow me on Medium as well. That's where a lot of people seem to be reading more of my stuff. And I think my name is @OratorVoice. So if you just search for that, that'll come up there for you.